Hi everyone, this is Lauren from Lauren Loves Cake. I am so excited to take over the Cake Safe Instagram page today and show you all how to make one of my favorite types of cake designs, a buttercream fiber art design. So what is fiber art? Fiber art includes knitting, weaving, macrame, and a bunch of other techniques that I have no idea how to do in real life, but I like creating them in buttercream. And since I often combine various techniques on a cake, I generally just call it fiber art. This is a Valentine's inspired design. Think of it kind of like a wall hanging. And I guess the reason I love these designs so much is because they allow for a lot of creative freedom. Unlike some other cakes, I don't plan very much with these. I don't do a sketch or anything like that. I just decide on my buttercream colors. And if I'm going to do a wavy design like this one, or a straight or sort of like a straight block design. So let's take a look at our supplies and then we'll get started. Here are the supplies for our cake today. As you can see, we have a bunch of different buttercream colors. You don't need this many. I tend to go a little bit overboard, but what I do try to do is combine some neutral colors, think whites, grays, tans, with some bolder, brighter colors, because I think that makes the design on your cake really pop. And then as far as coloring buttercream, I rarely use a color out of the food color bottle. I find them to be a little one-dimensional, a little harsh. So I'm always mixing colors. Half the time I forget what I do, but I do it because it adds some warmth and some depth, just sort of mellows out the color. My go-tos are Americolor Cork and Americolor Gold for mixing my colors. This is actually a combination of cork and gold, and these other bolder colors have probably one of those in them. And then for white, I add a little bit of violet food color to brighten up the white and mellow out the yellow buttery hues in the white. Then for piping, I use round tips and open star tips for all my fiber art cakes, but mostly round tips because they're amazing, and that's what we're going to use today. I do everything from tiny 1 tip up to 12 tip. I have a lot of round tips. And then I also use couplers on my bag. It's kind of annoying to prep your piping bag that way, but it's super helpful if you want to change out a tip. And then you probably can't tell here, but my piping bags are really only a third or a fourth of the way full. I do that because it allows you so much more control when you're piping, and it prevents those hand cramps. Like, that is the secret for me for not having my wrist and my hand hurt. Just don't fill your piping bag as much. We also have this precision tool. This is going to help us add some texture to our piping. You can also use a toothpick. Palette knife to clean up any messy piping mistakes along the way, paper towels as well to clean up your piping tips, and then we have some fun gold touches. I'm going to use this luster powder with lemon extract to make a shiny gold paint that will paint the dowel that our weaving is going to hang from, and then these gold sprinkles I might use at the end just to add some fun enhancements. So that's it, and let's get started. This is a 7-inch diameter cake that's crumb coated and finish coated in buttercream. You can also pipe the design directly onto a crumb-coated cake. I have definitely done both. You just want a smooth enough surface to work on. So I piped a thick ring of buttercream on the top using an open coupler attached to a piping bag. This is the dowel for our wall hanging. Then I put the cake in the fridge for about 20 minutes. Now I'm taking my mixture of luster powder and lemon extract to paint our dowel a nice shiny gold. Now, using our darker gray buttercream and a round tip number 5, I am piping strands over the dowel. This is one of the trickier things to pipe on this cake. Way to start with that, right? But just go slow and make sure to pipe up and over the dowel. Now, using our hot pink buttercream and a round tip number 4, we're going to make a knit braid. This is essentially an X on top of an X and just repeated. You want to make sure you pull away your piping tip from the cake after each stroke, just so you don't mess up what you've already piped. You can do this technique in any size round tip or open star tip, creating really different looks. It's very versatile. Now, using our white buttercream and a round tip number 2, we are going to make what I call swirls. You place your piping tip at a 45-degree angle away from the cake surface and move it in a circular motion to create this effect. You can do tighter or looser swirls and make them big or small depending on your piping tip. I love swirls and I use this technique all the time. Now, using our olive buttercream and a round tip number 5, we are going to make what I call dots. You place your piping tip almost horizontal to the cake surface, pipe a little dot, pull your tip completely away from the dot, pipe your next dot very close to or slightly touching your previous dot. It takes some getting used to, but these are awesome and also super versatile. You will notice I am not piping around the whole cake for this tutorial, but sometimes I only pipe half the cake anyway. If you think about an actual wall hanging, it would only be hanging on the front, right? Fully piped cakes are awesome, but they also take twice as long. If you're doing it for a cake order, just make sure you're getting paid for all your time and hard work. Using our lighter gray buttercream here and a round tip number 8, we are going to make another version of dots, a larger, elongated version. And I used my palette knife to clean up a dot that I didn't like. That thing always comes in handy. So same technique here, just extending our piping on each dot and using a larger piping tip. Now, using our red buttercream, we are going to make a rope. You pipe a base with a larger tip. I am using round tip number 6 here. Then pipe over the base using a smaller tip. I am using round tip number 4. You want to pipe from top to bottom at about a 45-degree angle, trying to go up and over your base as much as you can without messing up those gray dots above. Now, using our khaki color buttercream, we are doing smaller dots using round tip number 3, and also some more white swirls, still using round tip number 2. Now, we're going to do the trickiest part of this cake, a multicolored braid. We are using a number 5 round tip to pipe a base for each strand. That's that red. Doesn't matter what color you use because it's going to get covered up. Then we're taking our light purple and our dark purple buttercreams and piping small strands over our base using round tip number 2s. So as you can see, this is the same concept as the hot pink braid we did earlier, with a few more steps to give it this multicolored effect. This isn't necessarily hard, it just takes a while. This was definitely the most time-consuming section of the cake, but hey, sometimes those end up being the coolest parts. Now I'm going to speed up the piping a bit because we are going to use the same techniques we just covered on the rest of the cake. Also, very important, for fiber art piping and any detailed piping, I use American buttercream at a medium consistency. I don't always use American buttercream to fill and coat my cakes. In fact, this cake has a cream cheese buttercream hybrid that I love, but for piping, I find American to be the most stable and most consistent. So we are doing peach dots using a 6 tip, gray swirls using a 5 tip, hot pink braid using a 4 tip. Then we have olive green dots with a 5 tip, white swirls with a 2 tip, huge white dots with a 12 tip. I'm going to add some texture to those. The elongated light gray dots with an 8 tip, more red rope with the 6 and the 4 tips. And lastly, we are going to do our fringe at the bottom. For the fringe, I try to keep the same look and feel of the fibers that I piped above. So I'm using the same size piping tips. I chose to do the multicolor purple, the red, the hot pink, and the white because it is Valentine's after all. For all these fringes, you just have to do a lot of long piped strands. It's kind of tedious, but come on, they always look cool, right? So as you can see, we've definitely made a free-flowing, fun, wavy pattern. That's what I love about these cakes, is you can just make it up as you go. Now I'm adding some shaggy texture to our large white dots. I'm using a 1 tip here to pipe. You could also use a grass tip, but I prefer a 1 tip because I'm usually more precise with my piping. Now we're using our precision tool to poke those peach dots just to add some fun texture. I love using this technique on my cakes. It's super easy to do. And last thing, I added those gold sprinkles and piped some fringe underneath. Okay, we're back. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was fun. I would love to see any fiber art designs you all do. If you want to tag me, my Instagram is @CakeLaurenLoves. You can also reach out to me and DM me with questions or reply to this video in the comments below. Thank you, Cake Safe, so much for having me. Happy caking, happy piping, everyone. Bye.